In the World Rugby timeline, only one name sits on the top of the spear and carries with it the aura of intimidation and domination: the All Blacks. And this is why New Zealand are the most feared team in rugby. To fully comprehend the magnitude of New Zealand rugby, we need to look at its roots and its subsequent journey to success as a national rugby team. Established in the 1820s in the town of Rugby, England, the sport quickly rose to popularity. However, it wasn't until the 1870s when colonialists brought rugby to New Zealand the genesis of the feared All Blacks began. Upon its arrival to the shores of the land of the long white cloud, rugby quickly gained traction and soon became the heart of the nation. As a British colony, much of New Zealand's identity was still enveloped by British customs, but rugby was able to give New Zealand their own sense of identity. Distinctively, there was a shift from being a British colony to that of being the home of the All Blacks, eventually becoming the most feared team in the rugby world. Now fast forward to the early 1880s, this is when New Zealand really started getting international attention for its rugby prowess. A team mostly comprised of the Maori began playing matches against other countries. In fact, this is when Tom Ellison first came up with the idea of the New Zealand team playing in all black rugby jerseys, which would ultimately become synonymous with their identity and what the jersey represented. It was during the same time when they first introduced the war dance, the Haka. Clearly, the war cry distinguished the All Blacks from their opponents, thus adding to the legend of invincibility the world over. In 1905, Test rugby matches were first implemented, giving the All Blacks opportunity to travel overseas to play. This is when New Zealand rugby started carving out a niche for themselves. Their identity could not be hidden, and other countries noted their innovative playing styles, the raw power and expansive gameplay devastating the rugby world through the generations. To give you an idea of how formidable the All Blacks really were at this juncture in history, they played 35 test matches, and of the 35, they lost one. The resounding impact of these victories affected both New Zealand and the rest of the astounded rugby world. The All Blacks revolutionised the game and demonstrated that there was a more effective way to play it. At the same time, winning these games marked a pivotal change in New Zealand's identity as a country. This helped New Zealand to define itself on the world stage as the home of the All Blacks, the most feared rugby team in the world.
A great All Black, I don't think is ever satisfied with where they're at. You're at the top of your game every single time you're out there.
Now let's take a further look at the roots of the All Blacks rugby. The famed Ranfurly Shield, affectionately known as the Log of Wood, was first played for in 1904. The Shield represents the pinnacle of domestic rugby in New Zealand, and as a result, there are many famous matchups that still stand out in memory. The Ranfurly Shield doesn't only affect the game of rugby, since bragging rights are now up for grabs. This ensuing rivalry spills out into local towns and communities, which continues to strengthen the idea that rugby is the collective identity of the people. So, while the world was watching the All Blacks in their global endeavours, on the domestic front, competition was increasing within New Zealand. As a result, the players were almost always operating at optimum efficiency, and even though it was a domestic game, the standards were par excellence.
Perenara gets it in. First receiver is Savi and charging hard inside the 5 metre line. Now Perenara, up it goes to Proctor. Billy Proctor's only half a metre there. Perenara!
Still, on the home front, New Zealand kept on redefining how the game is played, resulting in a new breed of player who was now approaching the game from a new mindset. This constant reinvention of the game is one of the reasons that the All Blacks maintain dominance. Domestic rugby in New Zealand has proved to be a never-ending production line, churning out player after player. These players who are coming out of this system have no illusions of what it is to wear the black shirt, and they value the development that the local game which has brought them thus far. fully understanding that the journey to the All Blacks is another step. The value of the importance of this sacred journey cannot be understated. The privilege and honour to carry this and continue the legacy and ethos of what it is to be an All Black. It's for this reason that the New Zealand rugger gives high regard to the domestic game, because the road to an international arena comes through domestic development.
I've always dreamed of representing my country, and the Highlanders gave me that.
So by the time they reach this level, they're now veterans in their own right. In 1987, the first ever Rugby World Cup was hosted across Australia and New Zealand. The final saw New Zealand, led by Sean Fitzpatrick, win a 29-9 decisive victory over France. Incidentally, this is where the now Sir John Kirwin scored his famous 80-metre wonder try, or as he calls it, the Italian try, literally slicing through the opposition like a hot knife through butter. 24 years later, New Zealand won their second World Cup in 2011 and went on to win again in 2015. At the time, they were the only team to ever win back-to-back titles, and were captained by the unrivaled Richie McCaw, one of the best to ever play the game.
Is this the greatest? The magnificent McCaw.
When McCaw led the All Blacks to the 2011 World Cup, it was his 100th cap, making him the first All Black to reach this milestone. Under his stellar leadership, he steered them to 131 victories, 15 losses, and just 2 draws. He won the Rugby Championship 7 times and the Bledisloe Cup 10 times. The All Blacks were simply dominant. As if they needed more accolades, the All Black 7 teams were equally dominant during this era, possibly even more so. Between 1994 and 2016, the All Blacks absolutely ruled the Seven Circuit. In over 25 years of seven-a-side rugby, New Zealand had an unprecedented 14 victories. Between the years of 1999 and 2005, they won it 6 years in a row, and again in 2010 to 2014, they successfully carried their team to victory all 4 years. They won 12 HSBC Series, 2 Rugby World Cup Sevens, and took home 4 Commonwealth gold medals. They were led by the world-renowned Sevens exponent Carl Tinana and coached by the mastermind Sevens guru Sir Gordon Tetchens. The All Black Sevens had a combination of ingredients that was simply sublime. In 1994, Tetchens gave a young and upcoming Jonah Lomu his debut and moved him from the forward pack to the wings, and the rest, they say, is history. Now, let's focus on this phenomenon known as Jonah Lomu, the man who most, if not all, rugby pundits say was the singular catalyst of the evolution of rugby into the professional game.
No one sort of knew about him, and they said, well, you've got to watch out for this Jonah Lomu. This guy's 6'5", and he can run 100 metres, and he's got big legs, big arms, and all the rest of it. And we felt, oh, it's just another one of those stories.
This is not just about Jonah Lomu per se, but rather this is about the system and impact that the All Blacks had on the world, whether as individuals or collectively. It must be noted that a fresh-faced 20-year-old Lomu single-handedly destroyed the 1995 Rugby World Cup pre-tournament favourites, England.
World Cup semi-final against England. The whole world would know the name Jonah Lomu.
Look out! Lomu in again! Superb pressure!
Lomu did it with such complete and utter demonstration of physical dominance that game is still talked about today. In his career from 1994 to 2002, Jonah Lomu was highly influential both on and off the field. Lomu went on to play 63 caps for the All Blacks. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in October 2011. Compared to other countries, many having a population 10 times the size of New Zealand, the All Blacks have maintained an unmatched win rate of 76% over 637 test matches. When the All Blacks meets rival teams at home in New Zealand, their win rate was 10 games to 1 loss. However, when in the rugby powerhouse nation of South Africa, the home team won 26 games and New Zealand won 25. This is dominance. So why is New Zealand so feared in rugby? Because they don't just have history, but they have a living history to back them up. The results speak for itself. From the moment the game was introduced to the country, they adopted it as part of their identity, central to their country's culture. For New Zealanders, it's more than just a game. It transcends sports. It's a way of life, very transcendental, yet even almost supernatural. They're the All Blacks, and this is rugby. Now, are you just as passionate about rugby as we are? Well, like and subscribe, and we'll keep you covered with depth, personality and insights. And anything to add? Well, leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you.